With the upcoming NBA All-Star game just right around the corner, I wanted to go back and see who are some of the biggest All-Star snubs in NBA history. Last week we covered some of the worst NBA All-Stars, so why not see who should have been an All-Star, as these 5 players are some of the biggest All-Star snubs of all time. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content daily and weekly. Make sure to comment down below who you believe should have been an NBA All-Star. How is everybody doing? My name is GrayHoops, and I hope you enjoyed this video. John Stockton wouldn't make his first All-Star team until the 1989 season. However, in the season prior, John Stockton would have his breakout year, as it was his first year as a full-time starter on the Utah Jazz. Heading into the All-Star break, the Utah Jazz had an even .500 record, while John Stockton was averaging 13.2 points a night, an astounding 11.4 assists, as well as 2.6 steals per game, while doing this on the best efficiency of his entire career at 65% true shooting. Despite all this, Stockton would be left off the All-Star team this year, as the All-Star team would consist of guards Magic Johnson, Fat Lever, Clyde Drexler, and Alvin Robertson. Now, the selections of Magic, Lever, and Drexler all make sense to me, as they were all putting up elite stats and were all on a top 4 seed in the West at the time. However, Alvin Robertson, who was currently on the 18-23 8th-seeded San Antonio Spurs, would make this team over John Stockton while averaging 19.6 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, and 3 steals a night. Now, while these are great numbers, and Alvin Robertson was averaging more points per game, he was doing this on worse efficiency, as well as taking almost double the shots per game of Stockton. He was averaging considerably less assists and a similar number of steals while playing on a worse team in the West. This was Robertson's 3rd All-Star appearance, and this was Stockton's 1st season as a full-time starter, so voters hadn't really taken notice of Stockton, but after the snub, they absolutely would take notice, as in the 38 games after the All-Star break, Stockton would average an insane 16.5 points and 16.4 assists, as well as 3.3 steals a game. To make this even crazier, to end the season, John Stockton would average 17.8 assists over a 20-game stretch. Stockton would end up leading the league in assists, finishing 3rd place in steals, and would have the 3rd highest efficiency in the league. The next closest point guard was Terry Porter in 17th place. He would be awarded at the end of the year though, as Stockton would make the All-NBA 2nd team, putting him in a small group of players who have made the All-NBA team but missed out on the All-Star team in the same season. After this season though, Stockton would go on to make 9 consecutive All-Star games and a 10th in the year 2000, which is incredibly impressive. However, I still think he should have made that 11th All-Star game instead of 10. In the 2000-2001 NBA season, a 3rd-year Dirk Nowitzki would take the league by storm and revolutionize what it means to be a big man. He led the Mavericks in points, rebounds, and 3-pointers a game, as well as leading the team to 53 wins, their first 50-win season in 13 years. He would crack the top 20 league-wide in points, rebounds, as well as threes a game, which was unheard of for a 7-footer at the time. Dirk would also finish 2nd in win shares, 4th in true shooting percentage, as well as 12th in player efficiency rating, or PER. Despite all of this, Dirk did not make the All-Star game this year. Instead, Antonio McDyess would make his first and only All-Star appearance while playing for the Denver Nuggets. Leading up to the All-Star break, the Dallas Mavericks were currently the 6th seed despite having a great 31-18 record, while the Nuggets were hovering around the 10th seed with a 27-23 record, 4 games worse than the Mavericks. Antonio averaged slightly less points per game than Dirk, but he did average more rebounds per game. However, Dirk was playing alongside Sean Bradley, their 7'6" center, as well as Juwan Howard, both players who were averaging near 8 rebounds a game, so it does make sense that Dirk's rebounds were slightly lower. He was also playing alongside Michael Finney, who did make the All-Star team this year, who was also averaging 20+ points per game and was actually taking more shots per game than Dirk by a fair margin. Despite all of this, Dirk, who was on a better team, he was averaging better numbers, and was doing this on elite efficiency, was left off the list for a player who was a borderline All-Star and would end up missing the playoffs by the end of the year, as the Denver Nuggets ended up as the 10th seed while Dallas finished as the 3rd seed. This All-Star snub is honestly criminal, and I personally believe that this might be the worst All-Star snub of all time, and I've had many people agree with me on this. Luckily, Dirk would go on to make 14 All-Star games after this and bring a championship to Dallas in 2011, as well as now having his own statue outside of the arena. Atlanta. So I think it's safe to say that Dirk is not losing any sleep over being snubbed back in 2001. Next up, in 2014, Al Jefferson would have the best season of his career, averaging 22 points and 11 rebounds a game while playing the best defense of his career, and would also lead the Charlotte Bobcats to a playoff berth as the 7th seed. These were elite numbers and would actually net him a spot on the All-NBA third team at the end of the year, but was left out of the All-Star game, and unlike the other players, Jefferson would never go on to make an All-Star team in his career, making him one of the only NBA players to never make an All-Star team in their career, but to have made an All-NBA team. The one player that I want to bring up as less deserving is Roy Hibbert. Hibbert at the time was already a one-time All-Star and was considered one of the best defensive bigs in the NBA at the time, if not the best, as well as playing on the first-seeded Indiana Pacers, who were taking the league by storm. I know that defense and teamwork doesn't show up on the stat sheets, and Roy Hibbert was a phenomenal anchor for this Pacers team, and was a reason that they were the first seed, but he should have not been an All-Star this season. Hibbert on the year would average 10.8 points and 6.6 rebounds a night on a dreadful 43% from the floor, and was an overall well below average offensive player. And despite all of his offensive problems, Al Jefferson still did not make it, even though he finished 11th in the league in points per game, as well as 8th in rebounds. He also wasn't a slouch on defense either, because even though the Indiana Pacers did finish the season with the best defensive rating in the league, the Bobcats were not far behind, as they still had the 6th best defensive rating. Roy Hibbert would actually be left off the All-NBA teams at the end of the year, as the NBA started to take notice, since after the All-Star game, Al would put up averages of 24.5 points per game and 12 rebounds per game, dragging the Bobcats to the playoffs as the 7th seed, but still only one game behind the 5th seed, and Al would be rewarded with a spot on the All-NBA third team. Sadly, this would be Al's best chance to make an All-Star team, as he was already 30 years old at the time, and ended up being out of the league just 4 years later after being waived by the Indiana Pacers. In 2016, Damian Lillard would get snubbed from the All-Star game, as Kobe Bryant, who really shouldn't have been an All-Star, took up the starting guard spot, which I don't think anyone really had a problem with. However, in 2017, Damian Lillard was once snubbed again, even though he was putting up an incredible 27 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists a night. Damian Lillard finished 7th in the league in scoring this year, and also dragged the Trailblazers to the playoffs as the 8th seed. It's clear as day to me as to who he should have replaced, and that's Klay Thompson. Thompson was one of the best two-way guards in the NBA, but after adding Kevin Durant in the offseason, Klay's numbers just weren't nearly as high. Klay averaged 22 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists on the season, considerably lower numbers than Lillard, while also not having to lead the team and having a less offensive load, as this is the year that the Warriors would have 4 All-Stars, including Klay Thompson. It's very clear to me why Klay was an All-Star. The team had just added Kevin Durant and were by far the best team in the NBA, holding the first seed in the West. As well as Klay Thompson being an elite two-way player and being an All-Star in years prior, the Trailblazers were also fighting to keep their playoff hopes alive. It was a no-brainer for coaches and the millions of fans at the time to vote in Klay Thompson. But looking back now, Damian Lillard was absolutely the obvious choice that everyone overlooked. And thankfully, Damian Lillard is now a 7-time All-Star and has made the All-NBA team a total of 6 times, with him not looking to slow down, as in 2023, Lillard is still an elite guard who is possibly having the best season of his career at the age of 32. As this season, Lillard is averaging 31 points and 7 assists, so I don't think a snub in 2017 is really on Lillard's mind, as he is currently trying to take the Blazers to a championship, as he is the most loyal player in the league. This last player I want to talk about still has a chance of making the All-Star team, because as I'm writing this video, Steph Curry and Jaylen Brown have both been declared out for several weeks, and there's now an available spot. And this spot will most likely go to James Harden. I don't want to talk about him too much, so I saved him for last, as he is most likely going to get into the game, but James Harden was recently snubbed All-Star game just a few weeks ago, while averaging 21 points, 6 rebounds, and a league-leading 11 assists per night on the 4th best team in the NBA. The players that made it in over Harden that I wouldn't have chosen are Jrue Holiday and DeMar DeRozan. Jrue has absolutely been having a great year, averaging 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists while playing great defense yet again, while also holding down the floor in games when the team needs him. I'm actually fine with Jrue Holiday making it into the All-Star game, however I think he would have been perfect as an injury reserve, as James Harden is just flat out having the better year and shouldn't have even been a second thought about making the team. The other player that I was considering subbing in is DeMar DeRozan, but he's having an excellent year as well, and my only problem with his selection is that he plays as a wing and shouldn't be classified as a guard in my opinion. If Steph Curry hadn't gone down and James Harden wasn't or isn't an injury reserve going forward, he would be listed in every single All-Star snub list somewhere near the top for the rest of all time. Let me know who you think are some more All-Star snubs and what you think about these 5 snubs that I decided to talk about. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you for all the support and continuing to help my channel grow. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.